This is a story of an emperor who lived in a country far, far away. This emperor loved clothes. He spent all his money, all that he had, on shirts, on pants, on shoes of all different sorts. He didn't spend money on an army or soldiers or food for the people in his land. The army was weak. Horses and equipment were old. The emperor was only concerned with his own clothes. People throughout the land talked about the emperor and all his clothes. Other emperors met regularly to discuss plans for war and various responsibilities. But this emperor had daily meetings to plan his wardrobe for the day. These meetings were held in his clothes closet, where he sat and changed clothes on the hour. That was this emperor, and this is the story of this emperor. One day, two men, notorious for their antics and taking advantage of people, arrived in the emperor's town. The two swindlers heard everyone talking about how the emperor loved clothes and devised a plan. The men told the emperor they were weavers and made exquisite clothes. The emperor listened eagerly as the swindlers explained how they would make magic clothes. These clothes that the swindlers would make, if anyone should happen to look upon the clothes and not see them, then they would be considered unworthy of working for the emperor and should be beheaded or removed from the kingdom. They should be thrown out of the palace because they couldn't be trusted. The emperor was not sure that he understood the magic clothes and asked the two men to explain. "You see," said the swindler, "if one of your assistants cannot see the special clothes, he is not worthy of working for you. You should have him banished, thrown out from the palace, and find a new prime minister. Do you understand now?" The emperor nodded, "Yes, yes," and hired the two swindlers to make the magic clothes. The emperor called his assistants to purchase the materials. The swindlers told the assistants they needed the best silk from China, gold, and various other materials to weave the emperor's new clothes. The emperor was surprised at how expensive everything would be, but reminded how beautiful the clothes would be. All the material was ordered and sent up to the weaving room. They set up the wheel for spinning and the loom for weaving. The emperor's assistants brought in large quantities of gold threads for weaving and fine silk for material and set them in the room. The swindlers told the emperor they would begin work at once, and the emperor was so thrilled about his new clothes. They began at work. On the fine silk from China and the gold thread, but instead, they stuffed it in their own bags. They went ahead and worked on the wheel, weaving the clothes without using any materials. They pretended to make the emperor's new clothes, and nothing was ever done. One day, the emperor ordered his prime minister to listen to the door to make sure the two men were working. assistant reported that he heard the wheel spinning, and a tapping on the pedal, and the weaving of the loom. After a week, the two swindlers told the emperor they ran out of materials and needed more. He ordered more silk from China and more gold threads. And when the materials arrived, the two swindlers stuffed their bags again and continued to pretend to make the clothes. They made the wheel spin and the pedal tap and the loom weave. Another week passed and the emperor became impatient. He wanted his clothes. He called his assistant, an older man who had worked for him for many, many years, and they had a close relationship. The emperor trusted him completely. The emperor ordered the old man to check on the clothes. The old assistant entered where the swindlers pretended to work. "Come in," yelled the man. "How can we help you?" "I came to check on the emperor's clothes." "Certainly, here they are," said the swindler. But the assistant saw no clothes. He closed his eyes, and when he opened, he saw nothing. He didn't say a word and wondered if this meant that he was a worthless assistant. If he couldn't see the clothes, did this mean he was stupid? That the emperor would throw him out or kill him? He didn't say anything. Instead, he said, "What beautiful clothes you have made." "Yes," said the swindler. "Do you see all the colors and intricacies?" "Oh, yes," mumbled the assistant. Though he really saw nothing. "I will tell the emperor now about his wonderful new clothes." "Very well," said the swindlers, as they continued to work and work on the loom. The old man left the room, turned to look again, and saw no material. When the emperor inquired about his new clothes, he said, "Oh, they're beautiful, quite exquisite." And the emperor was so excited. The next week, more silk and gold were requested. The emperor became impatient and sent another assistant to check on the clothes. As he entered the room, the swindler held up imaginary clothes. And the old assistant saw nothing, and he was afraid to admit that he saw nothing. "Oh, quite beautiful," said the assistant. "The emperor will truly love his new clothes." "Observe the trains," said the swindler. "Look at the beautiful intricacies." But the assistant still saw nothing. "Oh, yes, that's beautiful over there," said the assistant. "Quite wonderful. And look over here," said the swindler. "Yes, yes, truly quite beautiful. I will tell the emperor." And he left the room, knowing he saw nothing. When he reported to the emperor was quite pleased that his new clothes would soon be there. The townspeople were talking about the special clothes. They were saying that if no one could see these magnificent clothes, they should not be worthy of living in this town. They would be thrown from the land. People talked of the clothes and began to get ready for the emperor. A large ceremony was planned, and a red carpet would be rolled out in the middle of the street. People would line the carpet and wait for the emperor. Everyone would watch in anticipation for the emperor's arrival, as this was the custom. While the people waited, the emperor and his assistants were ready to see the clothes. They entered the weaving room. The emperor looked in disbelief. He saw nothing. He turned to his prime ministers and exclaimed, "Isn't it beautiful?" The emperor thought, "Beautiful? Am I stupid? Am I not fit to be emperor? I see no clothes." "Oh, yes, beautiful," he agreed. The prime ministers and his assistants and the emperor and two swindlers commented how beautiful the clothes were, even though no one could see them. "Quite beautiful," said the prime minister. "Yes," cried an assistant. "Oh, magnificent, emperor." The swindler suggested the emperor put on his new clothes. They showed him the new trousers, and they instructed him to take all his clothes off but his underwear. The swindlers acted as if they were helping the emperor put on his pants. They tied the waistband, and they even put on his robe, one sleeve at a time. They zipped up the front. "Perfect," said the swindlers. "Isn't that comfortable?" Oh, yes," said the emperor. "Quite comfortable." "How does it feel?" said the swindlers. "As if you are wearing nothing. Yes, it feels like my skin. Yes, quite nice." "Perfect, that's how it should be," said the swindlers. The swindlers motioned to put on the imaginary hooded robe with the imaginary train, and called two assistants whose job it was to carry the train. But they saw no train. The two assistants stumbled in confusion, looking for the train that no one could see. Their heads banged and they fumbled to try to find the long piece of material. Of course, they could not admit that they did not see the emperor's new clothes. They held their hands out as they walked behind the emperor. The emperor, the two assistants, the prime ministers, and all the other assistants walked out to the street where the people were waiting. Everyone was saying how beautiful the clothes were, and the emperor grinned with pride. As he walked down the red carpet, people lined up on both sides, clapping and chanting about the beauty of the emperor's new clothes. Step by step, he walked proudly, and step by step the people cheered and chanted for the emperor's new clothes. They marched down the beautiful red carpet, everyone cheering behind them. How beautiful, how wonderful, they said. But one small child in the crowd stared at the emperor and cried, "The emperor has no clothes! He has no clothes!" The child's father looked down and said, "Oh, isn't he cute? He does have no clothes." Sure enough, the entire crowd chanted, "The emperor has no clothes! The emperor has no clothes!" The emperor stood silently and continued to march, holding his head up high, his two assistants and his prime ministers behind him. They walked until they were out of sight, and the two swindlers left town with the silk and gold, never to be seen again.